Hello, everyone, and welcome to Feminine Essence. Welcome to the Sacred Circle of Love. Today, I'm very fortunate to have with me Sophia Magdalena, who does Tantric Breathwork. And I have experienced it with her. It's incredibly exhilarating, passionate, and makes you feel really juicy and alive. And I would like to introduce you now to Sophia. Hi, Sophia. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Cecily. Thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here. Yes.
I'm so grateful. So let's just dive right into it. How did you come to know about Tantric Breathwork? Like, where did you learn about that?
Well, I call it Tantric Breathwork because it's come out of my own breathwork practice, which actually is called Love's Breath. And I was introduced to Love's Breath when I was living in Bali, and I joined a community, a spiritual community of people called Way of Mastery, similar to the Course in Miracles, but with a different focus and attention on heart-centered connections rather than going through the egoic mind. So in Bali, I came to Bali because I just love Bali and I just love the people and the culture there. And I was actually exploring the batik because I am a batik artist, and I was exploring ways in which I could produce and paint on silk to make beautiful batik kimonos and kaftans. So this connection with the Way of Mastery community in Bali led me into my own healing journey, my own healing of my own sexual trauma. So I have been continually attracting the kind of men that you would say are abusive men in my life. And I hadn't realized that this had become a pattern. And I had realized that it was a continuing pattern of attracting these kind of men. And I went into the Way of Mastery practices of breathwork, which is a healing modality for connecting consciously within us to the fears, the emotions, the past experiences in life. And through that process of consciously connecting and becoming aware of the experiences I'd had in life with men and my relationship to my sexuality, I became acutely aware of the guilt and the shame that I was carrying in my body from continual abuse.
So are you saying that the breath work was like kind of shaking that loose in your being?
Well, it was a combination of breath work and the other practice that came through the channelings of Christ, is this Christ consciousness, was this practice which is called radical inquiry, which is a journey of going deep within through questioning to the absolute truth, to that journey of connecting again and bringing awareness to where we have blocked these energies and blocked these beliefs, and how our self-worth and self-love has got stuck in fear and in the opposite of, the lack of self-worth and lack of self-love. So in going through these sessions that I had with the teacher, with JM, I over a number of years together in Bali, I was able to go through that whole journey, which is a combination of breathwork and radical inquiry, into what we call palpable forgiveness workshops. And in these workshops is when the actual trauma came up as the guilt that I was holding in my body that was extremely painful. And it was through a number of sessions like that was releasing the guilt and coming back to what is really true and authentic, is that, that my innocence and pure innocence, actually, because as a child I've always felt that innocence, and as you know, in my lifetime I've always connected to that innocence, and I've led a very fearless life. But you see, this trauma is very deeply embedded. So it was only when I committed myself to this healing journey myself, and through that learned the practices, so that I could actually offer sessions like these to primarily women. And this is how I created the Awakening Sacred Feminine modality that I offer in, which I offered many workshops in Awakening the Sacred Feminine in Bali.
I see. Wow.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so after you'd gone through the process yourself, you started to share the process with other people in Bali. I remember doing that.
When I went through such a deep process myself, I mean, it went over 5-7 years.
Yeah, right.
This journey work of clearing this really deeply embedded belief of lack of self-worth that came about through the guilt that I was still carrying around, having been, you know, having experienced so many traumatic sexual experiences in my life, that, I mean, there was that healing that took place was so profound, because I don't carry anymore any of that lack of self-worth or doubt within me, that I am fully open to loving relationships and intimacy. And in fact, the next stage was moving more into intimacy and tantra. And so that was a natural evolving of my journey, is that then as you move through the trauma and release the guilt and come back into that true place of innocence and being able to accept myself for who I am, and no judgment, no blame, just absolute forgiveness and love for myself and compassion. I held this compassion and love for other women specifically that had experienced the same types of trauma that I'd gone through. So there was it was beautiful then to just allow this to evolve into this wonderful workshops that combined yoni massage, as I partnered up with a partner in Bali who offered yoni massages. And so as we, you know, that combination of being able to actually physically to offer that physical experience to women of moving through their yoni and through the emotions and fears that are held through that divine passageway into the womb and into our root, into our creativity as women, you know, our source, our life force within us. You know, that clearing and connection that was made energetically through the physical body was then shared in the group work that I was doing and holding space for, that group clearing and deep breath work that integrated this process, so that the awareness of, you know, that initial core belief about ourselves that came from some early experience in early childhood, who came up through the sharing circles, and that clarity came through the radical inquiry process of that awareness, and clarity came to really see that where these beliefs had become stuck in the mind and in the body and emotionally in the heart. And so that beautiful combination of the physical yoni massage and the clearing and breath work in these workshops totally supported this journey of, you know, healing sexual trauma in those that participated, that came to these workshops. Yeah. It was an amazing time.
Well, yeah. I didn't go to, you know, that many of yours then, but I remember that time, and people were loving it. And I also went with you to France to a women's retreat, and that wasn't a tantric one, but many women had a lot of sexual trauma, and the work you were doing with them really helped them to clear a lot, so much so that by the time it was over. Now we all stayed in touch, and I can see how everyone's just like blossomed and become their true best self, you know, from doing all that release work. Yeah.
And it is about holding a very safe space, you know. So there's in the, I trust myself, and I trust my guidance, which spiritual guidance and my guides, to allow me to channel that work as well. So that because of that deep place of knowing and trust within myself that has come through my own work, I'm holding a space that you know, allows for that to release, to come up, to that shift to happen, which, you know, just actually changes. It does. It's
and so
change life.
I regarding the sexuality part though, and the change, what happens to people? Like, do they become way more sensitive? Do they become more passionate? Do they become more, like, what happens after doing sessions with you, tantric?
Well, I feel that, I mean I can remember in Bali when I gave a 7-day retreat for women a few years ago, and one of the testimonials from one of the women who took part, her experience of it was, and she didn't like to use the metaphor, if you like, but for her it really was that she went in as a caterpillar, and it was a total metamorphosis, and she came out a butterfly, and she expressed it in that way, and she shared that her whole life changed, her relationship to herself, to her body. She started to care for her body, for her, you know, and nurture and change her foods, her diet, her patterns in life, which became much more nurturing and caring and loving of herself. And it also changed her relationship. Her mother was there at this retreat, so it was just absolutely wonderful to experience that connection that then took place between mother and daughter. Yeah. You know, can you imagine? I mean, you know, when all this is openly shared in a very vulnerable and transparent way, and, you know, and so the relationship to mother totally changed, and mother's relationship to herself and all she'd been holding on to, and her guilt that she had around, because her relationship with her daughter hadn't really, you know, evolved into something that she truly could feel the love. So then the shifting between their relationship, and she also shared how choices she made in her life just totally changed her life, her friends, her work, her environment, her relationship to herself. So it really does, you know, bring you back to that place of caring and loving for yourself, and in doing so, being able to share that love with others.
So beautiful.
That's the change.
Yeah, and the self-love piece and self-care, I wasn't expecting you to say that, but it makes perfect sense, actually. And so I have there's
another aspect of it that I know really much I haven't said, that you see, when we're in that place where we have been sexually traumatized and abused, and continually so, then of course we are living a life of a victim. We call it victimhood. Yeah. So victims. As victims, we feel weak, we feel insecure, we feel overwhelmed, we feel fear, we feel, you know, life is a fearful place to be. And so what also changes in having these sessions and doing these workshops is that it brings you back into your power, and brings you back into feeling your power. So it's not about thinking or in the mind work. This is not mind work at all. This is deep feeling work, where you consciously connect to the frequencies of your body and energies in your body that shift, so that you actually feel your power, and you feel energetically empowered, and you feel energetically alive, and you feel this is the tantra, you feel energetically aligned in your body and your emotions and your mind. So it's that alignment and that connection to yourself as someone who is of worth, who has something to share, that has a life to live, that wants to live fully and in a way in which, you know, we as women can express ourselves and in all aspects of our feminine, you know, our beauty, our sensuality, our poetry, our dance, our movement, our painting, our minds, our beautiful, clear, conscious minds, and, you know, more than anything else, our hearts and our feelings and the love that we feel as mothers feel for their children. It's a natural way of being in our feminine. Yeah. So it's a remembering and returning to what it is to be a woman in a powerful way.
Yeah, it's like becoming who you were always meant to be. You know,
yes.
I've noticed with the people doing the breath work that you've, you know, taught or worked with, they became so beautiful. You know, like before it wasn't like they weren't beautiful, but everyone's beautiful, right? But once people connect to that part of themselves and then they radiate and then they're beautiful and they know they're beautiful. And it's not like they're meeting the kind of accepted beauty that's in magazines or whatever, but they realize their worth and they know they're beautiful. And that's another part of it that's that I've noticed with breathwork. It's so profoundly transformative. So, okay, but like, what about the sexuality? Do people become more sensitive? Do they become more alive? Do they become more orgasmic? Do they, like the tantric part, like what happens with that from the breathwork?
Well, in releasing the guilt and shame that we hold on to through, you know, sexual abuse and trauma, and shifting that, you know, energy back into our power, back into our authenticity, back into being able to fully trust and feel, you know, that we can express ourselves without fear. It shifts that our bodies so that we actually feel very free. We feel very trusting of ourselves and our sexuality. We feel very open. And even, you know, if in our previous, like in my previous life, where I was always trusting and open and sexual and very alive, what I attracted though was still, you know, men who are weak, because, you know, abusive men are weak, you know, they have no confidence in themselves, they have no power, so they use their physical power to dominate. And that's a sign of a very insecure male. So, you know, through this journey, of course, I hold a lot of compassion for men who hold this pain. And I have no judgments of them. I just love them regardless, because it's their pain that they're inflicting on us. So it's being able to see that it's not our pain, it's their pain. So that freedom anyway that comes from women who have not been able to accept that they can give themselves full permission to enjoy sex, to have pleasure, to feel connected, to feel intimate, to feel into that tantric intimacy where we actually are connecting intimately with ourselves. And breath work is about consciously, deeply connecting with our sexuality, with ourselves and our sexualities, with our bodies, with our emotions, with our, you know, with our spirit, our soul. So it is in itself, the breath itself is tantric, because it is a deep conscious intimacy that takes place when we move into that place of, you know, of connection within us to those feelings that we have about ourselves. So then that intimacy goes into, you know, being able to, you know, when we've shifted our fears and moved into that beautiful free feeling of love and connection, that we're feeling confident in ourselves, and we can share that intimacy with our brothers, with our, you know, with our loved ones.
Yes. So But you do it with men too, right? Like men can also do this tantric breath work, and they have the same
Yeah,
kinds of.
yes, very much so. In fact, the men's groups that I've held, they vary very much about. It's amazing how beautiful and moving it is to work with men, because their shame and their conditioning as men, to be strong, to be dominant. I mean, we know this. It's such a heavy pressure on them to perform in a certain way and to be a certain way and to be in relationship to women in a certain way that it's absolutely moving to see the tears that come through this process with men. Absolutely moving, because I've seen men, buckets of tears, just releasing and letting go of their beliefs of shame and their feelings of lack of worth. It's huge, and I feel it's huge because the pressure on them is so great, to be a certain way. And so it's very beautiful work to see that connection between men and men looking into each other's eyes and saying, I love you, and men being able to hold each other and men being able to massage each other. I mean, it's really beautiful work, the men's work. Yeah,
that's
very powerful.
Well, I'm in America, but that's been a really rough part, I think, also for men, when they're not allowed to touch other men, or it's not okay socially. I mean, it is okay, but they've been conditioned to think it's not okay, and to let that part down too is really powerful. I love that. Okay, so I have another question. We're kind of in America, where we're in COVID time, we're starting to open up a little bit, and you've been doing sessions on Zoom. Like, do they work? Does it work? Or have you been doing sessions on Zoom? Like, how does?
Yes, I can only do sessions now on Zoom. I had started Skype sessions some years back, so I have been doing Skype sessions, and now we're in this period of pandemic and isolation. We've all moved into Zoom. So Zoom is my medium now, and I feel grateful for that. And what sessions do clearly work on Zoom as well, because it's a learned practice, radical inquiry, and it's come through my own experience of it and through the teachings of the Way of Mastery. So I can apply it to anyone, anywhere, and my I can feel, even though we're on a screen, I can still feel someone's energy. They can still share what's coming up. I can feel the connection with them and what's happening and what's calling for healing within them. Yeah. So I can respond to that call within them that I can sense through the sharing that leads into the session. And then I can just guide it as a breathwork session and move through the questions of radical inquiry. And it's the same on Zoom.
I mean, I did have a session with you a week or 10 days ago, and it was really powerful. But I was just wanting to know if, like, the tantric aspect, I mean, it's not a difference, right? It all works. It's all good. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
So you're going to be offering at the Tantra Spirit Festival this year, aren't you? 2020.
I am. That's exciting.
You did it last year too, didn't you?
Yes, last year we were in Croatia, and it was the first Tantra Spirit Festival in Croatia.
Oh, wow.
It was a wonderful gathering of teachers and participants that came from everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was in the healing temple then, and gave sessions throughout the workshop, throughout the festival.
Yeah.
I will be there again this year, but this year we are online. Yeah. And I will be giving my sessions from the healing temple, but online this year. Yeah.
But it's an amazing festival, isn't it? Tantra Spirit Festival.
Yes, it really is moving through those spheres, you know, and moving into our sexuality and sensuality, and allowing ourselves to feel good about ourselves, to feel good about our bodies, feel good about our sexuality, you know, in a more intimate way. It's really it's a very beautiful connection that happens. I noticed. I observed how beautifully connected people connected through the practices, as say the Kundalini connection.
Yeah.
You know, and the touch, the sensual touch connection, and the love that came through the participants in this group was immense. It was quite unique. I hadn't quite experienced a festival quite like that. And I've done many festivals in Sweden, but this was very special, I must say.
We would like the whole world to be like that, wouldn't we? All over.
Yeah, I would love the world to be living constantly in a Tantra festival. I would love to be living in a Tantra festival 24/7 the whole time. I would be happy and I would be in bliss because I'd be able to offer what I do best, you know,
Yeah.
and be able to. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And very receptive too of me, and very open and welcoming of all the teachers and healers there. And a very lovely bonding between the healers. There was nothing competitive or nothing like that. We were just all supporting and loving each other at the same time. And we had group sessions together as a family. We were healers, so we were massaging each other and caring for each other as well during the festival.
I love it. Sign me up. I want to go. I'm going to go. It's online this year, right? So I can go. I can go anyway, but I'm going to go. Yes. So anyway, I was going to ask you, I'm going to put a link to how people can reach you under this video, right? So they can have a session with you if they're interested to have the experience of that freeing, blissful, passionate, activating, kind of a good juju, juicy download, upload, everything, load, unload.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything that you'd like to say in closing? Anything you want to share with the world? Joy to the world and all?
I'm just really grateful, you know, and happy to be sharing this work. And I think more than anything, it really is about loving ourselves and learning to love ourselves and accept ourselves fully. You know, regardless of all the little, you know, things we feel about ourselves, the imperfections.
God.
We just accept and love our imperfections.
Right. That's what I've noticed with the people that have done the breath work. When they love those, what they might have in the past thought are imperfections, then that's when they start to radiate that incredible beauty. Because there are no imperfections. It's just what makes them, right? Oh, love it. Well, thank you so much, Sophia Magdalena. Beautiful goddess of love. So great. So great.
Sending you all love. Sending you so much love. Thank you so much, Cecily.
Thank you. Love you so much. And thank you for that amazing transmission. I can't wait to go back and hear it again, because especially the, for me, the self-love parts, you know, the way people change, how they behave towards themselves. I'm going to hear that a few more times. I'm going to hear the whole thing. I loved it, but a lot of wisdom was shared. Thank you so much, so much. Thank you so much for joining our circle today. We love you all so much. Bye-bye. Lots of love.
Namaste. Bye.
Namaste.